Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a post-game edition of the Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Kevin Quigley. Jarrod Prugar has the night off. His wife gave birth about 3 a.m. this morning. We're recording this on Sunday night, so congratulations to the new father.
Not many nights off to come. Not many nights off to come. That's it. This nights off for this show, but not a night off in general.
I've gotten one text from him since 3 a.m. It was a picture. I responded with a congrats, and I've got nothing else since. So.
I sent him a congrats, and then he said thank you. And then
I know he's very busy. He's got a son to take care of. He's got a wife to take care of.
Yeah.
I don't think they've left the hospital yet. You know, that's usually a day 2 or day 3 thing. So he's probably sleeping on a couch in Altoona right now, or a chair in Altoona Hospital right now. So all good things. Joining me is Mike Asti, managing editor of West Virginia Sports Now, Pittsburgh Sports Now, does Sirius XM, does Yardbarker in baseball, you name it, he does it. Mike, Penn State played Oregon last night in the whiteout. Atmosphere was fantastic. The product on the field was not fantastic. Unfortunately, Penn State falls in double OT. What do you think?
So, as I told you off the air, going in, I thought Penn State was going to win. They were at home. I know they hadn't played anybody prior, but really neither had the Ducks. And Oregon lost a lot from last year's team. I thought Penn State would be the better team throughout this year. Didn't happen. And it didn't happen because the offense took too long to get going. The defense was there. The defense has always been there for years, no matter whether it's Micah Parsons or whoever's on the roster. But the offense just took too long to get going, and Drew Allar fed into the narrative. I mean, I think that's the unfortunate thing, and this is where you are probably, if you're a Penn State fan, the narrative around James Franklin that he can beat everybody he's supposed to beat, but top 10 matchups, obviously the record's really, really rough, doesn't beat teams that either he's equal or maybe worse than in terms of roster, doesn't upset anybody in those big games. Yeah, did win a playoff game, but they were the favorite in that playoff game. So you put him in a game like this, he usually ends up losing. And then Drew Allar, you get him against everybody, and he's dominant, and the numbers are crazy. Covered him against West Virginia back-to-back years. Numbers were crazy, dominated those games. But you put him in games like this against top 10 teams, against teams that could really vie for national championship, and he struggles. Even the playoff game, he wasn't at his best despite them winning. He doesn't have his best days in these environments. And it might be unfair to put that on them, but they just fed into the narrative. The offense took too long. And then once they got going, then the defense stopped being able to stop the Ducks. And then it went back and forth, and you had that wild ending. So I thought Penn State would take it. Their year's not over. This is not the olden days. This is the CFP. Ohio State lost to their rival and won the national championship. It can happen. You don't even have to win a conference to get in and win a title these days. But it's not going to be easy, and it puts a lot of pressure on their really other big game before the year's over, because Penn State fans are not going to care about anything up until that point now and are just going to sit there and complain and say you lost the big game. We'll see about the other one. But if you drop those two and end up 10-2, as you know, the narrative at the end of the year is going to be what I just said. Allar can't beat top 10 teams. James Franklin can't beat top 10 teams. They're at their worst in those big games. Yeah, they can beat everybody else, but I'm not impressed. That's kind of the state of, I feel like, of Penn State fans right now.
Yeah, I think emotional game last night. I think Twitter was in an uproar.
Yeah.
A lot of Fire Franklin's going on. A lot of, they should have kept Bo Prabula. All of this stuff gets thrown around, and it's kind of unfortunate because I think James Franklin's a great coach. He's an impeccable ability to be a CEO of a program. If you look at obviously the sanctions coming out of that, Bill O'Brien, I thought he was the savior of the program. I think his tenure is exactly what they needed there.
He was a solid coach, but James Franklin's more of a CEO, as you mentioned. That's the thing.
He has the ability to recruit. Penn State not really getting 5 stars, even in the late Joe Paterno era. Obviously not getting it in Bill O'Brien. Yeah. James Franklin is able to do that despite not winning any of these big games, right? He's 4-20. I think his win percentage starts with a 0.1. you cover baseball, 0.1 on a batting average. Like, you shouldn't even be in the bigs anymore, right? But that's half the Pirates roster. But we won't go there tonight.
100%. Yeah.
It's just unfortunate, and I think what needs to happen in this is that he needs to take on that CEO mentality. He needs to stop meddling. I think his fingerprints are all over this offense. I don't think this is his offense that Andy Kotelnicki is running. But James wants the dual threat quarterback. He wants a guy as the OC who wants to run a dual threat quarterback, and he goes out and gets this guy Andy Kotelnicki, dual threat guy, Jalen Daniels at Kansas, running all over the Big 12.
Yeah.
Not winning big games in the Big 12, but they're successful.
They weren't. Yeah.
Successful, prolific offense. It was more of a defensive issue than it was an offensive
issue.
He
was just the OC. He wasn't the head coach, right? Yeah.
And you go out and get him, and then it's now the second year in the Big Ten. They're 4 games into this season. You've 15, 16 games last year, whatever it was. And you just realize that the entire Andy Kotelnicki offense is nothing but gimmicks. It's trick plays, it's gimmicks, and it's rigid, it's inflexible. And Drew Allar was a 5-star, near the top-ranked quarterback in his class. I think probably up there with Cade Klubnik.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school. And he's a pro-style quarterback. And it's a square peg and a round hole. And nothing that they have done in the 4 years that he's been on campus has done anything to support him. You mentioned it off the air before we were coming into this, is that this is a defensive school.
Yeah, 100%.
Go out, win games with the defense, and we're going to hand it over to our quarterback, and we're going to tell our quarterback, don't throw any interceptions. If it looks like it's tight coverage, hold on to the ball, take the sack. We'll punt. Don't worry, because the defense isn't going to give up 7 points when we give it back to them.
Yeah.
And then you have this guy who, every time there's a slight opening, it's his only opening, because
do you think Drew Allar's trying to do too much, though? Because even though this is a defensive school, do you think he wants to be MVP of this group and he wants the limelight and he doesn't want to win that way? So that's why you see him try to force some passes to get in his mind at all. Do you think that's at all? Because Drew Allar knows the hype. He has the endorsement deal away from the program. Nike's paying him, even though it's now an Adidas school, as insane as that sounds. He is talked about being a James Franklin guy more than he's praised Andy Kotelnicki. But it almost seems like sometimes he kind of does just go into, I don't care who's coaching or who's calling plays, I'm doing me. And he just air mails a ball or he underthrows a ball. Like, there are just moments that he doesn't perform like a 5-star, even though the talent should always be there. That final pass that locked up the game for the Ducks was an errant pass. That wasn't a 5-star pass. That wasn't a national championship quarterback pass. That shouldn't have happened. And the ironic thing about it is, maybe if he become more of a game manager, let the defense really carry the day, just not make the mistakes, and then rely on the running game could score those touchdowns and gash those teams without him having to do too much, and then take a big play when it's there. Almost kind of mirror what Alabama did when they clipped off those titles and won all those championships under Saban. Maybe be better for the team. I just don't foresee Drew Allar ever agreeing to do that.
I don't think it's Drew trying to do too much. I think he only gets 1 or 2 chances a game to be Drew Allar.
Yeah.
Everything is read option, or
that's true.
If you have 2 running backs who are very capable, and you saw this their freshman season when you had a Mike Yurcich offense, which was mostly on the downhill side, like kind of a spread-esque, but not a lot of read option. And Mike Yurcich, not a great offensive coordinator in the Big Ten, but he was adaptable, and the team was successful because if every time you snap the ball and you have to hold the ball for a half second or a full second to try to, lure the defensive end in, they know Drew's not keeping the ball. So the entire weak side of the defense just flows to where the running back's going to be going.
Yeah.
Drew doesn't just get to go under center, run back to Nick Singleton, who's 7 yards behind the ball, or Katron Allen, who's 7 yards behind the ball, stick it in his stomach and say, go hit the hole. There's no hit the hole in this offense. And last night they hit the hole. They tried to hit the hole all night. The offensive line looked like turnstiles out there. I mean, they were much better at crowd controlling turnstiles than they were at run blocking. And everything was between the tackles. And there was 0 yards but 4 contact gained. Like, I mean, I don't know if that was the exact stat, but it felt like
yeah. No, that was mentioned on the broadcast that if they can't establish the run, Penn State, that's why they don't win the big games. And when they don't win the big games, they don't establish the run. And as you're saying, this was a big game. They lost. They didn't establish the run.
And if
it
all
sounds
you
simple, but
if all you want to do is run between the tackles and it's not working, you have to figure something out. You have to audible. You have to get rid of that game plan. And Trevor Pena was successful in end arounds. They found success running outside the tackles, except I think it was Tuioti or one of their defensive ends, Tuioti or Uyungale, not even splits a double team. Drew Shelton just goes to the complete wrong shoulder. He doesn't go to the outside shoulder, or he goes to the outside shoulder, not the inside shoulder. So they could have combo blocked and like into a triangle, and then Rucci gets up to the next level, and Nick Singleton, I think it was Nick, is just gone. It's 7 or 8 yards before there's another defender. And instead it's a 2 or 3 yard loss, or the first contact is 2 or 3 yards in the backfield. And it's like, fellas, like that's the run, that's the run offense that we have right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying we proverbially, like,
right.
I'm not a wee guy, but like that's the offense Penn State is.
Okay. My wife's a Penn State alum, so I was not, but we kind of in the house. She drops the we. She can do we. I don't do that either. Covering,
Yeah, I got in that with the Ryder Cup, and they were like, "You guys did that in 1991 today." I was like, "I didn't do that at all. Like, I have not come close to playing in a Ryder Cup."
Well, international, maybe we could. We're all Americans. We can all say we, but even when we're not out there, yeah. I like to say in any press box though that I didn't take any. I've never lost a game I've covered. Granted, I've also never won, so I'm 0 for 0.
Full disclosure, football, god awful. I hated getting hit. Didn't realize getting hit hurt in football, and then I
did track, golfed. I could run, but getting hit would probably be a problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem. But nothing they do, and then every pass concept is 3 levels to the boundary. There's a guy in the flat, there's a guy 5 yards down, there's a guy 15, 20 yards down the field. And if you look at the last play, they've run that wheel route. They ran that wheel route all year long last year with Tyler Warren. And there was no protection on the play. Drew's thrown off his back foot, and the linebacker, I forget who made the play.
Yeah,
Dylan Thieneman. I just looked over here, but made it. Got to give credit where credit's due. A guy,
100%.
Guy goes up with a 30-inch vertical, high points the ball. That was going to be a pretty high pass for a 6'5", 6'7" tight end. Like, super athletic play there, but like, you've run that play 30 times.
Do you like that play call there after the momentum shift? Because that's right after it looked actually like Penn State was probably going to win the game once they stopped the 2-point conversion. I imagine most Penn State fans thought this will be it because they're just going to rattle off touchdowns for both of these two teams. They both were hitting their stride. Do you like that play call, or would you rather kind of ease into it?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay. But it's aggressive. It's aggressive.
But you do that from ball position 5, which is the right hash.
Yeah.
I learned that that's the best thing that happened in college football this year is the ACC replay booth. More on that later. But it was on the right. The ball was on the right hash, and you throw a wheel route, which is reliant on space, and you throw it to the close boundary. You throw it to the short side of the field. Why are you not running it to the wide side of the field? Like, the linebacker has a 5-yard drop into his zone for coverage on that play. Why not make it a 35-yard drop or a 30-yard drop to get all the way out to that boundary? Make him run, and they don't do that. And I think that's the problem with Kotelnicki is, like, every route is to the outside. You go out and get Trevor Pena. Who knows how much money they spent in the transfer portal on wide receivers? Kyron Hudson.
I was going to bring up the difference of the wide receiver mentality, the offensive strategy to bring others in, and actually this roster now, because that was the issue in recent years, why you had to kind of do the offense that you're describing, where it's not allowing Drew Allar to be Drew Allar more than 1 or 2 times a game, and you don't have really a big play wide receiver. That's the only position Penn State's not had in recent years. They tried to fix that this offseason.
And then we heard at the end of the season last year that I think it was Trey Wallace that said it. The guy who leaves and goes to Ole Miss and starts going off. It's not the wide receivers, and you don't see it because you're not in the program. You don't see it.
Right.
You don't know the X's and O's. You don't know how valid that is. He goes out and balls out at Ole Miss. A little bit different of a conference. I think Ole Miss is known for throwing the ball.
A real aggressive offense with Kiffin on down. Yeah, 100%. Like
Jackson Dart threw for like 650 yards
yeah,
and 6 touchdowns last year. Like
you
it is a
try
more
not to put up numbers there.
yeah. But you go out and get Trevor Pena, best slot guy in the country, 1,300 yards. I think it was like 1,300 yards last year at Syracuse, and he's a slot guy. What does he?
Yeah.
What do slot guys do? They go and attack the middle of the field. They slash across the defensive face, get them slants, get them out in space, get the tight ends up seam routes. And there is not a single play in the playbook that involves a tight end seam route or a slot receiver on a slash route. One time they got Trevor Pena in space. Well, I guess twice.
Yeah.
Second play in OT, they got him on the cross route, got about 8 yards. And then the third play in OT, they got him on the end around. He goes in for the score. Holy cow. Welcome.
Yeah.
You have finally used the tool that you went out and probably spent $1 million on.
Right.
It only took you 60 minutes of gameplay to go get there. And I just think it's an underutilization. I think it's time for Kotelnicki to go. I think you keep it respectful. I think it's a 2-year deal that he's got. I think it's like $2.1 million a year, the highest paid OC in the country. I think you send him down today and you say, Andy, we thank you for your services. You're going to sit up in that booth all weekend long. You're going to look like you're calling plays with the play sheet over your face, whatever you are.
You do like a mirage, keep him the rest of the year. I was going to say fire him mid-seasons. That's something. But you just keep him up there. Okay.
I think you want to keep it respectful. You know, lame duck him, because I think the gimmicky side of Andy Kotelnicki, spectacular. What he's able to draw up, like that level of creativity, is awesome. Yeah. The problem is he does not know that like Drew Allar needs to run a West Coast offense. And I don't think anything in his offensive playbook, he's not capable of drawing that up.
Yeah.
And you need to install that.
Yeah, he does not at all scream to me a West Coast offense OC at all. That's not Jalen Daniels in any way. And that's who he obviously groomed and got the most out of. Even still to this day, that's the best of Jalen Daniels. I saw him a couple weeks ago, and he's now getting better this year now that he finally kind of got his guy in there again. But he had a rough 2024, made a lot of mistakes, threw a lot of picks, and when he was with Kotelnicki, he played clean and was able to kind of be him. So he had a dual threat QB that is a quintessential dual threat QB and was able to unlock him a couple years ago. I'm sure that's what Penn State was impressed by. They probably thought he actually was the perfect OC to come over. His age, his acumen, they probably thought he'd be a future head coach. I know that Power 4 program that I cover kind of looked at him heavily this past offseason. He didn't end up jumping ship. So they obviously are going to like that loyalty, and then probably figured he fit with Allar. I don't know if they would do it now because it is still early in him being there, and we're not far removed from, there are a lot of Penn State fans that were singing his praises a year ago. So it's interesting to flip off of that, but it doesn't look like Allar has improved it all, and it does maybe kind of look like he's handcuffed. You have him at 137 yards in a big game. That just doesn't work, and only even 42 yards on the ground. This guy did not even get 200 yards of offense, and you're a 5-star recruit who you think is going to win a national championship. That has to be a problem, and someone has to take the blame there. We'll see how the year ends. It depends on how the year ends. If they go ahead and get in the playoffs still and go ahead and win playoff games and win national championship, then it's not going to matter what happened against the Ducks here early in the season, and he'll go ahead and stay. Maybe he'll still even be an attractive commodity elsewhere in the country, and somebody else will offer him a job. I kind of know that he's kind of holding out for his perfect job, which we've talked off the air, may have been a really risky gamble because I don't know how, you're not, in terms of Power 4 jobs that are open, they're open because they're currently down. Like they're not, rarely are you going to have one open riding high, or else they're usually ascending somebody or something's happening that's already somebody, groomed there. So we'll see what old Nicky gets, but I would imagine he would still be attractive to another school. But I would also imagine that if Penn State doesn't make the playoff or doesn't go far in the playoff, and you see more games like this from Drew Allar and the offense struggles early in games, that he'll maybe be the scapegoat there because the defense just, no matter who you put in, and obviously now they have an elite championship defensive coordinator, no one's going to blame that situation, that someone's going to be the scapegoat, and it likely will be Kotelnicki. But
I think you lame duck him.
We'll see what they do.
You keep him through the end of the year, lame duck him. But you need somebody to go in there and understand that what needs to be installed, and it's going to be hard.
Who runs the offense then if you're lame ducking him right now?
Okay. Ty Howle. Ty Howle or Danny O.B. I think Danny O'Brien is quarterback coach, has Drew Allar's ear. Drew likes him, and he plays nice with Drew's personal quarterback coach. Ty Howle took over the offense after Oh my gosh, blanking on the name. Left before Kotelnicki, before they fired Mike Yursich.
Right.
Howle and Jaywan Sider ran the offense. Ty Howle, being a tight ends coach,
Okay.
knows how to use the middle of the field. Maybe have them install a package or two, have them install a couple formations, get 10 or 15 plays out of them, and just show Kotelnicki, like, if you want to stay here long term, you've got to learn to adapt. Because the problem is James Franklin loves to recruit pro style quarterbacks. Sean Clifford's a pro style.
Right.
Drew Allar's a pro style. Ethan Grunkemeyer, the backup quarterback, also a pro style. Bo, your one dual threat guy, gone. And Jackson Smolik, I don't think Jackson Smolik has anything spectacular coming out of high school. I think he was a low end 3-star, maybe a mid grade 3-star. Committed the same year. Like, I don't think there was a lot there for him, but like,
maybe Kotelnicki and Bo Pribula would have had a better relationship, and he would have got more out of him. Maybe, as weird as that is, you're obviously not playing him instead of Drew Allar during the season, but I mean, he almost fits them more.
I mean, you had the hybrid package with Bo last year, and I'm going to stop short of saying like Bo is the better quarterback. Bo could definitely run this offense better. I don't think Bo is the more talented quarterback.
Yeah,
it's just that they're not utilizing the full talent of
like
this
you're
roster.
not. Nobody
$3
but
million
Allar's
guy.
You're nobody but Allar's playing, no matter what. You're not putting. Yeah, right. Like that money is going to have him be the guy, and the talent for me is there with Allar. I hate, without knowing a guy personally, and I've covered him and been around him, but knowing a guy personally, I hate to say that he doesn't have the mental fortitude for big games. But the numbers are just different in big games, and it does lead to believe that if it's not a mental thing, if it's not a coaching thing, if he wants to defend Kotelnicki, which maybe he'll do in the future, if
they're not on good terms.
But if those things are not the answer here, and he says a lot more about Franklin. It does sometimes feel like there's subtle jabs almost to the other guy. So if you want to go coaching, you can go coaching. But if anybody does not want to go coaching and they don't want to say it's a mental thing, the only thing I'm left with then is that he's just simply taking advantage of having a more talented roster around him when he plays everybody else. But when the talent is equal, or he's facing Ohio State, or maybe with even more talent, then he can't athletically just dominate a game and just take it over on his own, especially with his legs, and become that dual threat. When he's in a game like this, it needs to be more of a strategy, and the play calling matters more. The play calling doesn't matter as much, because those same play calls were happening against West Virginia last year or in some of those games, but it doesn't matter when you're facing a team that's not as good as you. But when you're facing the Ducks, they're eventually going to figure it out. Like, how long did you think they weren't going to figure it out? Because they had a rough lull early in the game. It'll be interesting. I mean, somebody's going to have to be the scapegoat if they don't have a deep run. Certainly if they don't make the playoff this year. It's playoff or bust every year for Penn State, if not more, based on the money they're spending and what they just did a season ago, and even what Franklin says vocally. Maybe they even have, I mean, we kind of know Franklin behind the scenes, the way he works too. He likes Kotelnicki. I know that for sure. He did kind of advise him when he was being lured this past offseason in West Virginia, talking to him. Maybe James Franklin even tries to, call around the docket and hooks him up another job. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe there's just Kotelnicki. They even just let him, he's hired somewhere else. Or maybe he'll finally get a head coaching spot at a group of 5 or something. He almost does scream that he could be a really successful group of 5 gimmicky head coach that scores 40 points at that level of ball. That he could be that guy. But does he fit Penn State is a different question. That is still a defensive school that you just don't need to kill it. And maybe he's doing too much. We'll see, especially if the quarterback and him. It really got to be Allar making this decision on what he wants to see the rest of the year. But you also can't let Allar decide whether a guy's going to be there next year or not, because Allar obviously is not going to be there forever.
Allar's not going to be there. I think there just needs to be a push to run a more Drew-friendly offense. Whatever it is, you've got UCLA this week. You got Northwestern coming up, Iowa,
and what scrappy, does that prove? Right.
Scrappy. Yeah. Then a bye week, then Ohio State. Yeah. I think that's the next 4 games. It's UCLA, at UCLA, so long road trip, Northwestern, Iowa, by Ohio State. So you have 4 weeks there. Try to get 2 or 3 packages installed. Can you modify this offense to be successful to him? Because when it's Drew's time to shine, when it's a 2-minute drill and Drew's out there calling plays, throwing seam routes, throwing slashes, getting everything that there is to get out of the offense, out of what he's capable of doing. Like, and just last thing, just going to go completely off the rails here, but Aaron Rodgers, terrible offensive line in Pittsburgh. They're in Dublin this morning. They run a 4 curl run pass play. There's just 4 guys on a curl route, or maybe they're just little stop seam routes, whatever the hell they are. I don't know what the proper term for their route is, but like it is a 1-step drop. The nickelback is 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. He knows that slot guy is going to be open in 4 steps, 1-step drop, hit him in the stream. And guess what? A play goes, I think it went to Jonnu Smith and went for like 12 or 15 yards.
Yeah, quick release. There's nobody with a quicker release really in football history, arguably, in Aaron Rodgers. And when he gets protection, he's going to fire it off with a quick release. Sometimes you do see Drew Allar kind of hold the ball too long, even in that scenario, and that 1 extra second could be the difference. 100%.
So get him some of those quick release plays. Like that's what he needs to get in a rhythm, not some of these like swing routes and touch wheel routes. Like none of that stuff is, but like you need to install that and show that he can do it, because quite frankly, I think he's going to get to the NFL draft combine. They're going to see his accuracy. They're going to see his footwork. They're going to see his athletic.
I was going to ask that because I saw a lot even on social media that even as he's having a bad game and they're losing, there are people still saying he's the top pick in the NFL draft. And there's going to be a lot of teams that maybe want a quarterback. You mentioned the Steelers. No matter what they do this year, it's in Pittsburgh. Rodgers likely, I cannot imagine doing another year, even if they want him to do that. So maybe they're even looking at trading up, or depending on where they are, of getting a QB. Cleveland could be back in the game, of course. There are going to be a lot of teams that want a QB. Is he that guy that teams would really go broke and would really want, even if he has games like this against top competition? How much do these games stain him if he does this again against Ohio State? The NFL scouts might say, well, they're the 2 teams I wanted to watch you, and they're the 2 games you were at your worst. The UCLAs, the Northwesterns. Those are games that you could tune up something different. You could you can just mop the floor with anybody by showing up, and it's a long road trip. But you could try to install something different in those type of games that you should still win off talent. And then you have the bye before OSU that allows you another opportunity to do that. Who knows? But do you think this at all affects his draft stock if this would continue and they don't change the offense and you just get more of these games from him in the big games?
No, because I think he points to the USC game last year. Drew Allar got to be Drew Allar in the USC game last year. I just pulled it up. 30 for 43, 2 touchdowns, and like 391 yards passing. He points to that and says, I got to run my own offense. I got to run the offense that everybody in the NFL runs, not named Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen. I get to run the 27 other or the 29 other offenses like that. That's what I can do if you put me in that offense. Don't put me in that gimmicky bull crap. I'm not Lamar Jackson. Don't put me in a Lamar Jackson offense.
I'm not Jalen Daniels. It looks like he's running Jalen Daniels' offense still.
Exactly. So, all right, we beat offense to death. We've talked about the defensive school in Penn State. Let's touch on the defense after this break on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Kevin. He's Mike. Mike, we beat offense to death.
We did.
The defense got beat to death last night, not in performance, but because they were out on the field for 25 minutes through the first 2.5 quarters. Holes opened up. I don't think it's at the fault of the defense. I think it's simply that the offense had them out there all night long, and they were out there all night long and only gave up 30 points through 2 overtimes. Not a bad performance.
Yeah, I don't. It's not on the defense. The Oregon loss is not on the defense for me. 30 points maybe is more than James Franklin wants to see. He's probably going to say something like that even though the defense played well, it's not to our standard, a little bit lower maybe. You could argue that towards the end of regulation, certainly in overtime, and this just happens when you're facing a quality offense based on the overtime rules, that they're kind of set up to keep on scoring, that at that point, they kind of no longer look like they could stop the Ducks, but they were on the field all night long. They were exhausted by that point. It was going to have to be a game that they were going to have to win on the offense once the offense got going, once they got in overtime. And Penn State's defense is still fine. Penn State's defense is always fine. Penn State's defense is never going to be the problem, never has really been the problem in the history of even the program. So I don't think James Franklin is having nightmares about the defense. I am sure if he can't sleep, he's mostly having cold sweats on what can we figure out offensively? How do we not struggle for a half offensively? We can't do what we did against Oregon, against Ohio State. I can't draw both games and then lose a playoff game or not get in the playoffs and get fans, off my back. But I cannot imagine he's going to think the defense will be his problem. So no, regardless of what the numbers, the stats, or even the points allowed tell you, the defense is not Penn State's issue, and they could easily post a shutout against UCLA, who's already fired a coach. They could easily dominate Northwestern. Iowa obviously notoriously has issues trying to score, even though they've done a little bit more this year than in the past. But it's all going to be about that Ohio State game for that defense as their true test. But I would even imagine in that game, if they would lose, that it wouldn't be because the defense is awful. I would still imagine that Ohio State's not going to just dominate, run up in the field against them either. Even if they don't have the name recognition of the Micah Parsons type players, this defense is still star-studded and elite.
Yeah, 17 points in regulation. If you tell me that Saturday morning, Penn State's defense gives up 17 points.
Right.
Penn State's won the game by 10 to 14 points. They are one lawnmower setting and one holding call away from only giving up 3 points in the game.
Right.
The egregious missed holding call, and I don't want to blame officiating, but in these games, comes down to 4 or 5 plays that matters. 3rd down and 3, egregious hold call, crossed. I mean, it's a TJ Watt level mauling on denied Dennis Sutton.
Yeah.
Right in the face of the official. Dante Moore is able to get out of the pocket. I don't think he gets out of the pocket if Denai's not held, or he has significantly less amount of time. They convert that 3rd down, go on to score a touchdown. And then the the fumble, knee touches the tips of the blade of grass, fumble. Zaki takes it back to the 49, 50-yard line, right back to midfield. That's 2 plays. And in a big game, if those are the 2 plays where you gave up basically your 14 points, because the 3rd down and 3, I think it went for like 20, 30 yards, whatever it went for. Like, big play came out of that. So big momentum swing from there. And then, you don't get the fumble call because of a blade of grass, grounds crew, but that thing a quarter inch shorter next week. Like, massive momentum swing. So if you tell me Saturday, like I said, you tell me Saturday morning, they only give it 17 points of regulation, I think they're okay. I don't think Dante Moore.
Right.
I think Oregon's offensive line proved the country a lot last night. Their offensive line was not necessarily a strength last year. Dylan Gabriel couldn't really drop back a lot last year. Had to rely on his mobility, which he was more than capable of doing so. But Oregon knew that was their weak spot, went out and got talent. I think their offensive line played spectacularly. Penn State's defensive line maybe not as impactful as I would have liked to have seen, but I don't think he had no sacks last night. But I don't think Dante Moore had a particularly comfortable night back there. And until they were gassed and Oregon was getting 7-8 yards a carry.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah. It doesn't look good at the end. And I'm sure that people saying, well, they didn't step up when they needed them the most. They were just exhausted by that point. And I do think that you can expect this Penn State defense to shut out or dominate teams like, say, UCLA. But in games like this, against the Ducks, against Ohio State, if they make the playoff, Big Ten championship game, if they happen to be there for somehow, you can't expect more than 17 points in regulation. I mean, that's it's hard to expect them to give up fewer than that. And Oregon is a team now that I was one of them. I did kind of think maybe they were overrated coming into this matchup, which is why I thought Penn State would win. But now they have a quality win as ever anyone could argue in the top 10. And they've kind of proven a lot of doubters wrong, and they could easily say that, okay, we don't have the necessary stars. We don't have maybe the Dylan Gabriel. We don't have a Heisman candidate, but we have a better offensive line. Our battles of the trenches is better, and maybe that might make them better to actually win in the playoff. They might actually be a better team, even if they don't have the star power right now. So it's hard to really rag on Penn State. They did get pressure, even if the sack numbers aren't as much as some fans would want. It wasn't their best day, but it was not in any way the problem of the day. It wasn't why they lost the day, and it's hard to require or expect more from the defense in games like that.
No, at 4.5 yards a carry, and Oregon was making their hay late in the game. I would say
Right.
probably
Right.
we can actually look that up real quick. But like through the first 3 quarters, I don't think Oregon's offense was that prolific.
No.
Through 3 quarters, yards per attempt was 5.1. Oh wow! So the third quarter is where they took off. In the first half, sorry, this is bad. 4.7 yards a carry. Okay, for 2.8 yards a carry in the first quarter on 11 attempts. Like
There you go. Yeah.
the defense got out there and they were on the field. Time of possession in the first quarter was 9 minutes and 58 seconds. 1907 in the first half, and 27-24 through 3 quarters. That's a full game.
Yeah.
That's a full game of time of possession.
Yeah. 100%.
Like you can't expect your defense to be out there, and if your offense doesn't show up until the third quarter, you're gonna have a bad time, because 69 yards of offense in the first half for Penn State was pathetic. Put the defense in a lot of bad spots. Your pass rush is not going to be effective if they've played a full game in 3 quarters.
Yeah, I 100%. I think the moral of the story, Kevin, and this will be what Penn State needs to do in order to beat Ohio State and to win, quote unquote, big games and have James Franklin's record against top 10 teams not be as bad as it is, and try to improve it in any respect, because he's realistically not getting fired. And as we mentioned at the top, the overall resume is going to get him in College Football Hall of Fame someday. He has won a Big Ten. He has won a playoff game. He has a 700 win percentage, something like that. It's good, but to win more of these games and get him from just a regular Hall of Famer to a statue, and to get beloved and have this not be so polarizing of a tenure, and have people even say that part of it maybe is enhanced based on the strength of schedule and not playing a Power 4 and out of conference. To get rid of that conversation, he's going to have to win more of these games. And to do that, their offense, Penn State's offense, is going to have to start out stronger. And regardless of who they're playing, if that means changing a game plan, changing an offensive strategy, switching it up on who's calling the plays, putting packages in that maybe you see earlier in the game, whatever. They can't have offensive lulls and then expect the defense to force turnovers, get defensive scores, and then just sit back and say that's enough for us.
Yeah,
that
good job,
is
guys. Thanks.
Yeah. Like I mean, that's happened in Penn State seasons, and that's how they win games. That's great, but you can't rely on it. And it kind of felt like against the Ducks, they were just sitting back. Well, eventually they're going to turn one defensively. Well, that doesn't work, and you're going to exhaust the defense with how much they're on the field. If the offense can start pouring it on, or at least go toe to toe with somebody, then your defense can be able to catch a break every now and then and get full strength for that second half and be a little better off maybe in overtime. And against Ohio State, they're definitely going to have, if they do what they did against Oregon against Ohio State, not to say that Ohio State is necessarily a better team, but their offense is. So Ohio State, regardless of what happened against Washington, because I know they didn't score that much in that game, but for the most part, if they do that against Ohio State could then be up by so much they end up with a dominating win. They end up with a touchdown plus type of win. We will see what happens. The whole season's really on that game, of course, barring them really collapsing before. But the offense cannot crawl through games and then expect the defense to do it for them. The Oregon loss is definitely on the offense, regardless of who you want to blame on the offense.
Yeah, when you go out and spend $3 million on a defensive coordinator, which is head coach money at probably 100 of the 130 whatever FBS schools, you expect that defense to be good. It's been good for a long time. Brent Pry, Manny Diaz, like you can rattle off defensive coordinators in even the last 5-7 years, and you have no gripes or complaints about it.
Gets them head coaching jobs, generally speaking.
Yeah, they showed up last night. Amari Campbell, 15 tackles. I think he had 10 or 12 in the first half, which was a career high, and he got that in the first half. So shows that A, he was involved, and B, he was on the field a lot because Oregon was running a lot of plays. I think play discrepancy was like 30 to 15 at some point in time. Like doubling up on plays is ridiculous. So credit to the defense. I think 17 points more than gave them enough to win. One turnover would have been nice, but you can't expect that every game. I think Dante Moore, actually, he was careful with the football, didn't really put in a lot of danger. You got to give credit where credit's due. 29 to 39, 74% completion rate. 248 yards. Like,
to be that efficient against that defense, because as you say it, as much as again it's not on the defense, it's not fair to expect this. It almost felt like one big turnover for the Penn State defense would have won the game. I mean,
yeah.
certainly once they got the offense rolling, certainly if it happened late in the game, but again, you can't just sit back and rely on that, or defense hasn't had the big turnover yet. Well, maybe if your offense is not sleeping through the first quarter or so, certainly even the first half, that wouldn't be as much of a requirement, even if it's a staple of the program. So, yeah, it's not on the defense to me.
And they got off the field too, right? Like, Oregon was successful in first down, a lot of 3rd and 3s, a lot of 4th and 1s, 4th and 2s. And credit to Dan Lanning, he was very decisive in his calls. We're going for it on 4th down. We're going to do.
That's what James Franklin said on the broadcast, that he's expecting him to, if he gets a 3rd and short, to go for it every single time. That was the expectation going in.
And he did. They went 5 for 7 on 4th down last night. Penn State's defense got horrendously burned on one of them. But 248 yards on 39 pass attempts. Like, the defense played well.
Right.
Like 420.
That should be
424 yards of offense.
Yeah.
That's in only 17 points. Like, you gave up a lot of meat between the 20s, but you locked in and you got them off the field, and you forced punts and you forced field goals. And, credit to them. Disappointing that the offense couldn't get it done for them. Disappointing for the fans who had to probably pay, secondary market tickets for $500-$700. I think it beat, I think Alabama, Georgia tickets in Athens were the second most expensive ticket, and they were like mid $3s. And I think ESPN said that tickets to get in the door last night was $480.
I mean, whiteout, game day, top 10 matchup. It has everything you want. It does, I don't know, take away the steam a little bit of the whiteout's no longer some guarantee win. If you put it on against a good team, Penn State's had their issues. Just go ask Nick Saban. That comment was funny. And then Oregon and Danny Lanning kind of backed it up and did the same thing. And for Oregon to get a win on the road in that environment and that hype, and they really were expected to lose by many, to get the win, no matter how they got it, I'm sure they're sitting back saying, you look at the numbers, fail to get 300 passing yards. We have to go 4th down a lot, even though we know we're always going to push on 4th down. Our offense struggled as well. It was 3-3. It felt like forever. And we get out of there with a win, and we get a pick at the end, and we do it in overtime in that environment. That's one of those that makes you feel, and people hate these cliches, that almost makes you feel like there's a team of destiny situation. Like that's a win you got to get when you're trying to actually win a championship, and that usually goes to you when you're trying to win a championship, which is why Penn State fans are so upset, because it's the championship or bust year, the last dance year that I enjoyed that series on Nittany Sports Now, and it doesn't feel that way when you drop the big game after not having any big games prior. So we'll see what happens against the Buckeyes, but the Ducks have every reason to stay at the top of the heap, and they've earned. I won't give you the rant here, as we need to move on, but I am somebody that hates having a preseason poll in this era of the transfer portal, because you just don't know.
Us too.
You just don't know anything. You don't know anything. But if there's any team right now, and we still have teams that really still don't deserve their ranking. Penn State's an incredibly talented team, but they don't have a quality win yet, to be fair. You look at the Ducks, they're one of the few that can sit there and say, I don't care whether you want a preseason poll or not. We earned our spot. They got their rank. Like, they earned their rank now to get that win. And there are very few that earn that. So when you're in a scenario where you don't have many opportunities at quality wins because you're so talented and so better and expected to do so much against everybody, you got to win those games. And Penn State 0 for 1 right now. We'll see about the next one. Do you think, I guess my last question to you before we go to national stuff, do you think Penn State's going to beat Ohio State, if you're ready to make a hot take? And do you think if they beat Ohio State, that will cover this up from the polarizing fans, even the people that are major detractors and hate Franklin? If they get the win over the Buckeyes, that'll, okay, lost Oregon, but we at least got that one, and then they're likely still be in the playoff, and kind of they can make up for this in that game, or people will still bring this up and say that if you do that, you should have done this, and then now you don't have an undefeated season because you messed it up against the Ducks.
I think if they keep the status quo, which James Franklin is remarkably status quo, he's not going to make any sort of drastic changes. Ohio State is very familiar with Jim Knowles, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't think it's close in Columbus.
Okay.
I don't think it's close. I mean, I'm talking 14, 17.
That's what I mean. If they do this on offense, I think it really could get out of hand. I know Ohio State does this all the time. People will point to, oh, they barely beat Washington or they didn't dominate them enough. This is what the Buckeyes do. They kind of toy with teams, but when they get in those games, when they play Penn State, you get the best Ohio State team all year. And that effort could really get ugly if Penn State doesn't match them and Aller doesn't step up. And who knows? If they get the win, though, Ohio State, do you think it would perception-wise forgive Franklin for other miscues and maybe make up this game for Aller and Franklin, at least for this year, or people will still remember this?
I think if they beat Ohio State, it represents a paradigm shift within the program. Okay. That means they actually made dramatic changes within the season. They actually understand how to utilize their talent. They brought back so much talent, so many seniors, so much motivation to get to that national title.
This is the year. Yep.
And you go out and lay a fat egg like they did last night. I mean, an Oregon wide shaped egg that they laid last night probably hurt to come out. And you go into Columbus and you take that from them. Ohio State's going to be the number one ranked team in the country. James Franklin's beat them one time on a fluke. I was there. I was there. I stormed the field. Okay. But let's be honest. It was a fluke.
Yeah.
He's not won the big one. He's not won a big one on the road, of course. I don't think he's ever won. He's not beat Michigan or Ohio State away from Beaver Stadium.
And the playoff game they were supposed to win. I mean, they just were. I mean, they were supposed to win, and they've argued, and I've argued for them. They probably should have got a bye if you want to be fair, based on because at that year they had a W, they had a Power 4 and out of conference, they had the other wins. If you want to go to this current system or how it probably should be, if you're looking at overall team, they probably should have. They were better. They probably should have had a bye. They were better than Boise, but they get playoff wins against teams they're supposed to beat. Still,
I mean, they're favored by
teams they're supposed to beat.
Favored by 10 plus against SMU. I feel like 7 or 8 points was the Boise State Pride. I mean, it was a similar level there.
They're supposed to win them at home and then a neutral site. They're supposed to win those games. The games they're not supposed to win, or even if they're favored, the spread is 3. Anytime the spread is below 7, somebody should pull this stat. If the spread is below 7 or the spread is below 3, one way or the other, what's Franklin's record? Like if it's a swing game, that's the issue. If they're supposed to win, they win them.
I had it pulled last year, and I'm not going to take the time to because it would not be timely for me to find it. But he was like 33-1 against this. I think it was leading up to the Notre Dame game. He was like 33-1 in games that he was supposed to win in the last like 4 or 5 years. Like he
ensures he covers too. He ensures he covers. That's all.
Well, they haven't covered anything this year. So
even against FIU they didn't cover. I mean, to defend that spread was a little wacky. Wasn't that like a 41-point spread? But
I mean, there's no reason there's no reason with that talent they can't put up 50, 60 points a game against FIU.
That's true.
But they didn't cover. It's just unacceptable. But so I don't think Ohio State's close. But if they somehow pull off the miracle, I think that's a cataclysmic win, program shaping, program shifting.
Yeah.
I don't know if your Fire Franklin crowd gets quiet. I don't think they get silenced. They might get quiet, but that just means that they made a lot of adjustments because I don't think this offense is anywhere close to being able to beat Ohio State right now.
Yeah.
And if it somehow is able to put up probably 25 to 30 points against Ohio State in Columbus, maybe it's a noon game because Fox hates college football. But if they can go into Columbus and put up 30 points and get the win, that would mean that there is a new leaf for James Franklin because he has done something that he has not done since 2014.
Yeah, and maybe it means what you're saying, and maybe it means Kotelnicki is kind of pulled back, and maybe
give him a lame duck.
Yeah, maybe they do that, and maybe it makes people forgive. Although it probably increase the expectations even more than the Fire Franklin crowd would probably say, okay, you do that, win a national championship, and if they don't, then they'll be upset still. There are people who are just always going to be miserable, but there's more pressure on that now because it's almost the only program in the country that a 10-2 year is not going to make the fans happy.
And I don't know if 10-2 gets it done either, because you're going to have one win against Indiana.
You're probably not a playoff team this year. Yeah, you probably are not. There's a lot more teams log jamming that top 10, top 15, unless you get certain teams that, if there are a lot more programs that do not normally win a conference title, that normally win 10 games, the Ole Miss of the world, for example, this looks like the best Ole Miss team. They're not probably going to win the SEC. They're going to drop a game. That's what they do. But if they have one or even two losses with what they've been doing already, a really quality win in that conference and going to face ranked teams, and if you're ever in a scenario where you're picking between a non-conference champ Penn State or a non-conference champ Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss gets the bump right now. If Penn State loses to Ohio State, they basically got to get that win. That could be a play-in type of game and more pressure on them certainly than Ohio State. And there's a lot of other programs that are going to be in there, like Ole Miss is. So we will see. I mean, they cannot complain about anybody who would say you're lucky to be ranked where you are because you don't have any quality wins, because they had an opportunity and they didn't get it done. And they're the ones who made the schedule before without a Power 4 on it. I mean, Franklin's involved in that schedule making. There's not a rule against it.
Virginia Tech backed out.
Yeah.
During COVID, and it's tough to find it. It's tough to find an opponent.
I feel like there was time to fix that, though. I guess I understand that. I've heard that
3 years is tight.
I know.
Schedules
I mean, I do
5 to 6 years out.
I
3
hear
years
you.
is.
I will say the only thing, and maybe part of it is I've seen it directly. So covering West Virginia, they backed out, they canceled, they had the whole SEC. They've changed their schedule 3 or 4 times in that same time span. It can be done. Now, Penn State didn't need to do it because if they run through the Big Ten and win even one of those big games, they're going to get in the playoff. They didn't need to do it. And I'm sure they would have beat Virginia Tech. I'm sure they would, they had West Virginia on the schedule the last couple of years. I'm sure they would beat most of the teams they would put on there. But if you're doing a ranking right now, it's a fact is a fact. They don't have a quality win. That's just the case, whether it's their fault or not. And we will also see what future schedules look like. I guess I'll just add that, because I don't think they have a Power 4 next year either, right?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked.
Out of conference. That's the thing. I don't think they have one next year either. So you're getting to a point where eventually they could change it. But if that's the case, and if they want to, and we will also see if the Big Ten ever has to move to a situation where they have to require teams to schedule a Power 4 and out of conference play, because now the other Power 4 conferences has that as a rule that the SEC, ACC put in. The Big 12's never had a team not do it. So if the Big Ten puts that rule in place off of just pure peer pressure, it wouldn't just be Penn State, but they would somehow have to figure it out and get one. So would Indiana, who way more egregious than Penn State. They're legitimately canceling games on their own, and it's not COVID influenced. Maryland, they don't have one. I don't think so. We'll see if that's forced into. They'd have to then figure something out. But
I don't think we're far away from going to a Big Ten SEC showdown where your opponent is based off of where you finished in either the previous season or 2 seasons ago, somewhere like in the NFL style, first place schedule, second place schedule.
Yeah, I would be down with that.
I would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
By the way, the defense of Penn State for this year, I can hear, because they did lose the Tech game because of COVID, and I get it's quick, even though other teams have moved around their schedule, that next year, Penn State 2024 out of conference schedule, from what I'm seeing here, is Syracuse, Delaware, Temple. So they do have Syracuse on it.
Delaware kind of stinks. That's not a good one to have. Delaware's not. But
no, but you're gonna have. I mean, I wouldn't. Everyone has a throwaway game on there. That's fine. But having Syracuse on it, so next year's schedule is the same type of thing. And next year you don't have Drew Allar, but next year you don't play the Buckeyes. You do play the Ducks. You do play. I mean, next year's schedule is arguably easier because they're going to still beat Syracuse, even though you have a Power 4 in the out-of-conference schedule.
Yeah.
So next year could also be the year because they're going to recruit well again, but there's just more pressure on that. But they at least have one next year from what it looks like, 2027 schedule, actually. Let me see, 26. I didn't think 26 had it. So just quickly, 27 has Syracuse. That's what I thought. So next year does not. 27, they have it. Next year, they have Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo.
Yep.
So
is what it is. Two group of 5
And there's
teams,
no Ohio State
or
in there. So
3.
they're gonna run through that, and then they're gonna play Maryland to start Big Ten play and destroy them, I'm sure.
At least it's 3 group of 5 teams and not a 2 group of 5 and an FCS. So.
Marshall's funny to be on there. Marshall opened up with Georgia this year and then Penn State next year. So next year Penn State doesn't have a P4 and out of conference. They do have it in 27.
Have that that old tie with Marshall, former Penn State offensive, I think it was running back coach. Man, terrible with names tonight. He was at Marshall probably when that game gets scheduled. I think he's now in Southern.
I'm sure Penn State will win by 30 points. But
so some teams won by 30 points. Penn State was not one of those, but let's go talk about some of those programs on the third segment of Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of Lashing Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. I'm Kevin. He's Mike. Mike, this weekend of college football lived up to the table. I think we've had an excellent season so far. Maybe last week was not the best, but the other 3 weekends of the season have been, or other 4 weekends of the season have been absolute barn burners. Started off the weekend hot. Florida State, number 8, traveled to Charlottesville, about an hour up the road from me. UVA gave them the business. Won in double OT. I think that's the fastest field storming I've ever seen in history. We need to check on that Florida State wide receiver. He got trampled by the student section. Tough look there, but man, big win for the Hoos.
Yeah, and they've had a couple big wins in recent years. I mean, Virginia's historically not a football power by any means, but they kind of are building themselves up as a team that no one really wants to play. Everyone's on upset alert when you face them in the ACC, and Florida State looked like a team that finally got back and clicking after kind of a downturn period after feeling like they got screwed out of the playoff and it was still a 4-teamer. So it's a bad loss. It's a great win for Virginia. The ACC is probably going to be a conference. We're going to see more of that. Miami should run away with the conference, but they probably are going to drop a game. Clemson's out of it now. Pitt looks like they're not nearly what people thought they were before the season. It's kind of open. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised, but they look like that again. Louisville maybe is right in there to contend, but I actually am not too sold on them. They crawled through a JMU game. They had to come back against Pitt. We'll see with them. But Florida State had the door open for them, and then they lose this one. They could still win other games. And, of course, there was some controversy with a call in there that Florida State fans are never going to stop bringing up. You do have the idiot fan there trying to get himself on TikTok and flipping off a player there as he crashes the field. So I'm cool with storming the field in a big game like that. But it maybe you don't need to flip somebody off and throw it on TikTok. But
if you've never been to Scott Stadium, the entire end zone is grass. Like it is an entire hill section. Like Clemson's hill section even kind of wraps around a little bit behind the end zone. The entire end zone at Scott Stadium is grass. There's nothing there. I mean, there was 4 or 5 deep on the field before it ended.
They were ready to go for sure.
They missed that, if Florida State misses that catch in the end of the end zone and like the receiver and the fans are inches from each other, chirping them up in the storm. I thought it was awesome. Virginia was incredibly well coached. They got beat on that.
They've been well coached for years, but
incredibly well coached. I think one thing that stood out to me is they got beat on that pot pass on 4th and short, just selling out on the run. Florida State got a touchdown out of that. The next go around, Florida State ran a similar play, heavy play action, 4th and short from the goal line. Defense dropped out, covered the only 2 routes that there was, and Castellanos was just not able to get the pass off. So great in-game adjustments. Foreign things to Penn State fans. And, be able to come out and win against a top 10 program. Also something that Penn State was unable to do.
A team with more talent that recruits better than you. That it felt like Florida State was trying to out-talent them. Like, you can out-scheme us, but we're going to out-talent you. And then the team out-scheming them ends up getting the victory. And even if you want to go to the controversial call and even, the idiot there fan at the end, Florida State fans don't have too much of a gripe because they had their opportunities and they still didn't win that game, and they shouldn't really have been in a shootout with a team like that, that even when Virginia's got big wins in the past, that's the most surprising thing to me. Even when they got big wins in the past, it's more of, we'll score 20 plus and get it off to our defense. They hung tough in a shootout with generally a team that has more talent. So we'll see what they keep on doing. But yeah, it's an entertaining program to watch. Sit down and watch Virginia football if you have nothing else to do.
And I'll give the referees credit. Like, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They are there to enforce the rules. if you're UVA lining up to kick a field goal, you are there to enforce the rule of, hey, by the way, you can't do this. And it is a new rule change for this year. UVA still had a timeout, like all of this stuff, and UVA didn't use their timeout in that overtime session. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Florida State can kick rocks. Ohio State traveled to Seattle. If you listen to the show, I'm a chronic Florida State hater. Ohio State traveled.
It's a big complaining fan base. They like to complain for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Penn State's a cult. Florida State's a cult. They're all cults. Yeah. Ohio State traveled out to Seattle to Washington. Sleepy game for the Buckeyes. I don't think Washington's all that good.
No,
they're lucky.
I don't think so either. No.
Another one of those 3 time zone games for the Big Ten now that they have to contend with every week. Obviously, you have to do that in the NFL, especially if you're a West Coast team. You have to travel time zones a lot. College football, you used to not have to. The Big Ten has shown that 3 time zones is tough for a college athlete.
Yeah,
100%. 15, 20 hours, 15 credit hours a week, 20 hours of practice, and then flying 3 time zones away. And it's a long flight to Seattle. Seattle's way out there. But I don't think they look spectacular, but they were able to pull away late. And
it's what they do. They're obviously the better team. They eventually showed that. Ohio State doesn't have to win by 40 points in every game to get where they need to be, and they know that. So they're a battle-tested group. And if it maybe was a scenario where they were doing that in a game against a team closer to them at home, like hypothetically, if Michigan State or something came to their place and they somehow did that to them, okay, that's a team you even have it be close for a minute against, and you don't have any travel issues. But cross-country trip, it's a quality program. I mean, they were in the national championship game not long ago. It's not like this is a bad program, even though they're down right now. So it's enough for Ohio State. I mean, you're going to have some of their fans that are going to claim if they don't win by 30, it's not really wins, but that's just not reality. It's enough for them.
Yep. Next game, the Kiffin family feud.
That was fantastic.
LSU traveled to Oxford, Mississippi for Ole Miss. The Kiffin family won, and that would be in the shape of Ole Miss. Landry Kiffin was celebrating the win after that.
I did see that. Yeah,
we did cover the new relationship on the block. Her boyfriend did throw up, I think, in the first quarter. There were rumors that it was a Lane Kiffin plant to get him drunk. Some wild fan conspiracies there, but
maybe food poisoning there for the girlfriend makes him a meal, and who knows.
Hey, honey, you want eggs for breakfast? Let me spike these a little bit, some salmonella. I think LSU's offense showed us what they've showed us all year long, is that they're not a legitimate threat. Penn State's offense is right there with them, but I don't think LSU's offense is a legitimate threat. One of those teams that have not earned a top 5 ranking.
Yeah.
Have kind of squeaked by throughout the season, barely get by Clemson in the Battle of the Tigers at Death Valleys.
And we see what Clemson is. I mean, we see what Clemson is too. They're one of those preseason hype darlings that doesn't deserve their spot, and we see that, and they're just not balanced. It's exactly what Lane Kiffin. I love when he wins big games because he throws it out there on social media.
I love it.
So it's all taunting, and he had the we run the ball T-shirt trying to taunt them. Like, they're just not a balanced offense. They're not going to win games like that. They don't have no matter what they have defensively. You need an offense to go against Lane Kiffin in a big game. And he's going to lose some of those too. But when Lane Kiffin loses big games, he usually just gets outscored. It's usually a shootout. He gets outscored. His defense collapses. If his defense shows up and his offense gives him enough against a team that doesn't have a balanced offense, he's going to win. And maybe there was Lane Kiffin was a little motivated as well. And maybe I saw even some conspiracy theorists out there that people thought going into the game, oh man, this girl was persuaded by this boyfriend to post then and announce then and try to get in Lane Kiffin's head. Maybe she intentionally flipped it and got in the boyfriend's head, who then couldn't mentally get into the game. And maybe it was a whole plant. I saw conspiracy theories that it was Lane Kiffin told her to do this. Any of that would be fantastic if that actually was the case. And as a girl dad myself, I did tell my wife and daughters that if there's ever a big game I'm covering or whatever, I'm not going to probably be an athlete coaching in one or playing in one. But if there's ever anything like that, I don't announce any relationship going in. However, maybe if it's if we're doing mental gymnastics here, like Lane Kiffin did, maybe I'll be down with it. So that was rough, but big win for the Kiffers.
we're 2 years removed from 706 yards to 637 yards in that same Ole Miss Arkansas LSU game.
Yeah.
Final score that was 55-49. So not far removed from that. And then LSU puts up 13 points yesterday.
Yeah.
Rather uncompetitive. Sorry, they put up 19. I don't want to disrespect them.
Yeah.
Alabama went into Athens. We didn't really know what Alabama was. We didn't really think Georgia had a lot going on.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson really proved a lot of people wrong. Georgia just needs an offense. Their defense blanks Alabama in the second half, and it's a game I didn't watch. Like, admittedly, I was preoccupied, but it was just this college football season's weird. I don't know who the number one team in the nation is. You can say it's probably Ohio State or Oregon. I definitely do not know who number 3 is. I do not know how to fill out the rest of the top 5.
Yeah, 100%. Top 10 even. I mean, top 15, all these playoff teams, a lot of them have either not proved anything or already have had hiccups or look to have weaknesses.
Yeah, so Alabama gets it done. Georgia, Texas A&M wins a close one at home against Auburn. It is what it is. Indiana needs a last-second score or last-minute score to go up, and then the bad beat conspiracy theorists are out there. Indiana gets that safety on the last play of the game. Tennessee struggled against Mississippi State, and then the team I thought was going to be second in the ACC went into Winston-Salem, North Carolina yesterday. Needed OT to get past the Demon Deacons.
Yeah.
That's the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, they still got to prove something, too. I mean, having that result is only going to inflame their doubters. This is a program that's not known to be here. They're kind of coming out of nowhere. Maybe if you look at recruiting in the transfer portal, maybe you're not surprised because they have been spending and they have been getting up there in those preseason ranks. But still, the casual fan's not used to this, and then they're going to look at that result and say, what are you doing? So you do need to – and they're a program – that is not going to get the benefit of the doubt that maybe a Penn State would get, for example. If they're not going to win a conference, and maybe they would, they're going to start needing to impress. They can't do this and expect to get any type of benefit of the doubt from anybody since they haven't really been there recently. So that was kind of concerning. And then the Indiana thing, I mean, this is just a pet peeve of mine. And don't hate the player, hate the game. So I get it. And you can't control your conference schedule as well. Kotelnicki is a great coach, and to walk in there and do what he did last year is a great job from him, going from JMU to do that. It's a program that was literally nothing before he got there. No joke. Indiana football had 3 bowl wins in general of any kind prior to Kotelnicki getting there. 100+ years. It's not a football school. However, he did have an easier schedule last year. Part of it was he lucked out and just had an easier slate in the Big Ten. He went through the whole thing without a quality win, and they got in there. And then this year, to do this and kind of crawl through and not impress, once again, kind of having an easier schedule, they're almost one of those teams that just feels destined to get wins and not have to be tested and crawl through games and have crawling through be enough. They're kind of annoying to me. I just know they're just going to keep doing this. But they have had big scores. Certainly, they've won games by a lot of points, not usually against really good teams, though, is the issue. So there's still a question mark. What are they going to do later in the season? What are they going to do in a big game? If they get in the playoff, which if they win enough, they probably will get benefited out and get in again for Cignetti. Do they have a chance in the postseason? They feel the same as last year. To me, that they're going to get enough wins to be in the conversation, but they're not really having to beat anybody. They're not impressing any of these games. And Bama had to get a win. If you want to, otherwise you probably have a coach in the hot seat who doesn't been there that long, taking over for Saban, but the pressure is insane.
Especially obviously with Florida State
Smart
losing.
Doesn't have that. Yeah, especially with Florida State losing 100%. They had to get that win. And I didn't expect them to do it, but they got the win. And when in those type of games, just freaking get the win and get the hell out of there. Saban wasn't always impressive either. And that's just kind of what Bama does. So I'm sure Georgia will be fine and keep recruiting and be back soon. But they had to get that win. Bama needed that win for sure.
Yeah. Indiana does have to go to Oregon in 2 weeks. They would bye this week. Oregon in 2 weeks. At Maryland.
I imagine they lose that.
And I think Malik Washington, the freshman quarterback at Maryland, he looks good.
That's an interesting team. They could be this year's Indiana if they get some of those wins. Yeah.
Probably going to be dangerous. And then so at Maryland, at Penn State. So Indiana could have a tough rest of the season. Last thing I want to touch on, USC traveled east to Illinois. really competitive game. USC just couldn't quite pull it out at the end. Jarrod and I do picks every week. I lose by 1 pick every week. You want to guess who I had this week and who he had this week? I did not hear the end of it because he was very not busy Saturday morning, got very busy Saturday night. Okay. So Saturday morning, as the games were progressing, I was getting a lot of first he had to get the picks from me. I had to take the screenshot of our sheet because he doesn't remember who he picks. And then miraculously, they're all correct. That's funny. He just brags to the end of it. Okay. Illinois, after a embarrassing loss last week against Indiana, bounces back against a USC team that had to also go I think Illinois Central. Feels like Illinois is a central time zone. So at least 2 time zones.
Yeah, they're not east. They're definitely but I mean that's USC shouldn't be like this, but I'm not surprised when they do this. This is what they've been doing even under this regime, under Lincoln. Like, this is what they do under Lincoln Riley. They have these swing games that could mean something for them, where they either don't show up or they just eventually drop. They end up with a 3 or 4 loss year. They don't, even with preseason hype, they never live up to it. USC, in the market they're in this era, with the recruiting base, the history behind it, the success even of the staff prior, and having money there and mega donors that want to flood it and put money in, they should be a power. They're not. I mean, they're a power 4, obviously, but they should be a powerhouse, and they're not. So until they show me something, I'm not surprised when they keep doing this, but they should be a program that wins in this era. They were kind of doing this back in the day when they were winning. Like, they should be able to take advantage of this system, of NIL, of the portal. I'm sure Snoop Dogg would help funnel some deals if he could. Like, they should be better than this. And you have to wonder how much longer they go with this staff too. If they have a 7-5 year, that's not nearly the standard there, especially in this era, what they're putting in financially. So something got to give soon.
Who else are they recruiting against in California? Oregon.
That's it. Not UCLA. Certainly not UCLA. It is Oregon. It's been Oregon for a while, but it's not UCLA. We're not talking basketball here. Clearly, they're not getting it done on the football field. You could argue maybe it's Washington, because they did have a run with a Heisman candidate at QB, but it's basically the Ducks. It's basically the Nike money. It's Phil Knight throwing money around, and a kid who grew up in Southern California, I think I would still rather go to USC than Oregon, just for the history of it. If they get me close to the money, it's just not working out on the field, though. Is that coaching? Are they not winning enough of those recruiting battles? What the hell is going on? It's not like they're dealing with murderer's row schedules. They're playing the same schedules everybody else is playing in the Big Ten, in or out of conference, and they cannot win these swing games. These swing games, you can blame it on travel, but it's one thing if they would lose games to the Ducks or to Penn State or to Ohio State. Okay, I can see that every now and then. You should win some, but you can lose some. They should be in this era beating Illinois.
They should.
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley, he's posed it, and I don't think he's been a spectacular coach. I think he does falter.
Yeah.
He's got a little bit of James Franklin syndrome to him. 4-11 against top 25 at USC. 0-3 in the playoff dating back to his time at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, he did make it, but usually did not.
Sure. Win, so. Yeah. I mean, you would imagine that he has to be on the hook or on the hot seat if they end up with another one of those 7-5, barely contending out of it, after Thanksgiving. If that's the case for them, you would imagine, if not this year, next year, but you would even imagine this year. It's not like he just got there and there's nothing on the rise for them. Him getting there, the hype was that he would stop what USC had done for a decade of just being average when they should be above average. And he's not elevated them. They don't appear to be elevated at all. They appear to still be middle of the road. And I guess my last national take here is still a Big Ten take. You mentioned Maryland and Washington and what he's done as a freshman QB.
One more thing about USC.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The only thing that's going to save him, Lincoln Riley, is last year he made a big change in the middle of the season. He benched a starting quarterback in Miller Moss, went to Jaden Mayava.
Yeah.
He shows that he's trying. I don't know if it's going to work out for him, but he shows that he's trying. He does have Michigan, does have Notre Dame, does have Oregon left on the schedule. So
yeah, so if they lose all those games, or I mean, he could. I mean, he could win one or two of them. You're
probably
figuring
beats
not to
Notre
win
Dame.
them all. You got to win Notre Dame. Probably they're vulnerable this year, of course, but it wouldn't shock me if they clip off the schedule now. There's talent there. Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Like it just depends what the state. I feel like the USC fan also has thoughts of grandeur where they expect 10-win seasons, and maybe he could save his job by having an 8-4 year, but that's not really going to make all the USC fans happy. And he just did the thing where he kind of saved it last year. Does he do that again? I just wanted to get out there though that I do think Maryland has a chance to be chance. This may sound like a hot take, and I'm actually a Maryland hater just because they never play anybody in the out of conference, and I think their overall history of their program is very overrated. When have they had a big year ever outside of the early 2000s and the 50s? But they could be a dark horse playoff team if they can clip off enough conference wins. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten, but if you're thinking the Big Ten gets a lot of teams, they could be this year's Indiana is basically what I'm saying. If Indiana loses and they get vulnerable again, and maybe Illinois would keep losing and after they just got to win, but if they would lose, maybe there's room for Maryland. I'm not sold on them yet because we mentioned Penn State's out of conference schedule. Look at Maryland's. They play nobody. So they got a victory over a very down Wisconsin team. It was on the road. That is a big deal. Washington's looked really, really good. They were even selling that they're waiting for this year to get the stud at QB. We will see what they do. But if they win these conference games, that program seemingly never can get enough conference wins, then maybe they have a chance at an 8-9 plus win year. And the crazy thing about that is I've been saying for years, Mike Locksley is maybe the most overrated coach in the country. He should have been gone years ago. The man's career record, 20 games under 500. I cover West Virginia. His career record is basically the same as Neil Brown. And Neil Brown had a billboard up, and I don't think he can ever even go back in the state. And Locksley's still there 6-7 years in, but he's probably saving his job again because their offense looks damn good. We'll see what they do in big games. Again, it's hard to gauge them against Towson and Northern Illinois. We'll see what they keep on doing this beyond the Wisconsin game. But they could be a dark horse team that clips off some wins and then is at least still in the race towards the end of the year. But
yeah, Washington, big name program coming to town. Nebraska, big name program coming to town. That's a team that's budding. That's going to be
Nebraska
very intriguing. That's going to be a very intriguing game. That is October 11th.
100%.
At UCLA. Whatever. But then they have Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan in 3 of their last 5 games to finish off the season.
But they avoid Ohio State. They avoid Ohio State. They avoid the Ducks. That's what I'm saying. I think it's there for them. They avoid Penn State, and they never beat Penn State. I don't think Maryland is really a team that even now with the way they're playing is good enough to really be a national championship contender. But the way the system works, if they get enough wins because they avoid all the big boys, they could be in the conversation, as insane as that sounds. If they beat Indiana and if they beat Nebraska, they're a lock for 8 or 9 wins, and Locksley's staying because the rest of them they're going to win. So they shouldn't have more than 2 or 3 losses. They're undefeated now. But yeah, they don't play the major teams. If they played Ohio State, Penn State, they would lose even now with this roster. But this is the year for them because the schedule is relatively as easy as it ever could be.
And that's probably this is what you get when you go to 18-team conferences.
Right.
It's just what you get. Like
the Big Ten is a legit conference, but every given year you're going to have an easy schedule because you can't have everybody play everybody when you only have so many games on the schedule. Yeah.
Yep. So that's all I got. Any parting shots for you? Anything you need to get off your chest?
No, I think I got it off my chest. This was fun. Yeah, congrats again to Jarrod and his family. Didn't mind at all jumping on here. So no, I mean, wife is a Penn State alum, so she occasionally does drop the we win a lot of games, don't win any big games take. So she's in that camp. So I do hear that all the time. That was dropped on a Saturday night, and it's one of those things where you just say, touche. Like, yes, I'm like, correct. Like we'll see what happens.
I'm not gonna lie. so disappointed last night. I doom scrolled Reddit until 2 a.m.
Like, that's something. That's not even. That's beyond even X and Twitter, man. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're doom scrolling Reddit until 2 a.m., you know you're down bad. So hopefully, Jarrod's on the up. He's got a lot of excitement. Hopefully, I'm on the up. I'm not going to doom scroll again.
Okay. Yeah.
And then hopefully West Virginia is gonna butt up for you. But
I don't know. I mean, you got to get somebody. You got to get somebody on the field. Half the roster's hurt. It is year one of the Rich Rod, and he's not changing. So I would imagine more losses to come here. And that's what I always tell her too. Like the whole, win a lot of games, not win any big games. Regionally speaking, West Virginia, Pitt, they're just trying to win games in general, let alone winning big games. So that's a typical Penn State fan. I always say to her, like, you don't beat Oregon and Ohio State, you beat everybody else.
Boo-hoo, I lost the national champion and I lost in the national semifinal last year.
Yeah, boo-hoo. 10 wins is ho-hum, another 10-win season. I'm not impressed. Like, some fan bases would love to see it. Would love to see
higher aspirations, Mike. Thanks for joining us. This has been Kevin Quigley, Mike Asti on the Nittany Sports Now Network.